Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tim. This is another Real Ideal Gear review. Today we're looking at the SGW500. This is an outdoor watch. It is a twin sensor watch, and it is a challenger for my favorite Casio of all time. I kid you not. I've been looking at this watch, going through the specs, wearing this watch, putting it through the test, and this watch is right up there with the triple sensor Pathfinder watch that I currently have. And I got to tell you, as far as value goes, boy, this watch has got some really, really good specs, and the price is outstanding. So let's take a look at the 5 things that we typically look at, which are size, fitment, finish, accuracy, legibility, and lume, and light in this case. So this is an anti-digi watch. The size of this watch is outstanding. It's in the mid 40 millimeters when it comes to the width and the length. The height off the wrist is 13.5 millimeters. And actually the dimensions of this watch, height off the wrist is the same as the triple sensor Pathfinder, but the width and the length of the watch, it's smaller. So the footprint, the real estate that this takes up on the wrist is a little bit less than the triple sensor Pathfinder. And I find the Pathfinder to be a little bit large as far as like taking up space on my wrist. It has great proportions. The length and the width, or the diameter of this watch, really is just outstanding as far as the overall look of the watch and the feel of the watch on the wrist. Now the weight of the watch, what about the size as it relates to weight? This watch is less weight than the triple sensor Pathfinder. And that makes sense because it doesn't have as many tools that on board as the triple sensor Pathfinder. It has tough solar, it has atomic timekeeping. It also has the ABC, it has altimeter, barometer, and compass readings on there. So there's more stuff on there. It makes sense. But when it comes to the wearing experience, this is a lighter weight version of a really good outdoor watch with a great compass and a great thermometer. The 2 things that I use the most anyway. I've occasionally used the barometer on my triple sensor Pathfinder, not as often as obviously the compass. The compass is the number 1 reason why I wear that watch. So this watch, as far as the weight goes, a little bit lighter weight than the Pathfinder, so it kind of has an edge at this point in the dimensions and also the weight. So what about the fitment? The fitment of this watch is outstanding. It has the same Casio issue that I always say, which is the holes are just a little bit too close together. But aside from that, how does this fit on the wrist? Very well balanced. Again, it's a little bit lighter weight, a little less real estate on the wrist, so it fits really well on the wrist. For people with extra small wrists or maybe small wrists, probably not for you. But anybody in the below average up to large wristed people, I think this watch is going to fit extremely well. I think you're going to like the looks of this watch a lot. This is one of the best looking outdoor watches that Casio makes that I have seen. Now the triple sensor Pathfinder is in a category of its own. I do like the look of it. But this reminds me a lot of the Wave Scepter WV200 in a lot of ways. The button layout, the bezel, there's a little bit of aluminum in here. You've got the resin case, you've got the acrylic crystal on. I mean, just a lot of things about this watch remind me of that WV200. So let's get into the finish of this watch. Now let's start from the inside and work our way out. If you look at the dial, there's kind of this fish scale pattern that is on the dial, and I love it. There's a sunburst effect that's also there when you have a direct light source on there that moves around. The handset is beautiful. I love it. The hour hand is distinguished from the minute hand. The second hand has that skeletonized look where it has the triangle halfway down and a syringe tip on the end. Easy to see without my glasses. Right now I can look at this and I have no issues knowing what time it is. Even though the display is smaller because it's an anti-digi watch, I can look at the analog watch. I know exactly what the time is. No issues. I can read the writing, the cardinal directions that are on the bezel. I know the compass button and the thermometer button are in blue. That stands out from the other black buttons, the other 3 black buttons, which is the adjust button, the mode button, and the light. Talk about the buttons for just a second, because if you look at the light button, it is a different size than the compass button and the thermometer button, and it's nested in between them. So when it comes to using this watch, easy to know where the light button is, and it's a dedicated light button too. So for me, I just love that layout. Now I prefer the ideal setup for a light button is the 6 o'clock position. But this position on here, this design, I really like the way that they've laid this out. Now, the indices that are in here are all blue with a white capped lume on the top. You have the compass, the degree markers on the inside of those indices. It's a nice touch, gives it kind of that outdoor feel. Now, when you hit the compass button, it tells you in the digital display what direction you're facing according to the degrees on the compass. So you don't necessarily need the degree markers that are inside the indices, but it's a backup if you want it. It's cool. It's a great look. The overall case design to me is very efficient. It's kind of the mix between industrial but also kind of classy looking, and it has that resin look all the way around except for the aluminum bezel. So to me, this watch it kind of plays around a little bit with being a classier outdoor watch and being just a tough G-Shock type style watch. Now, what about the digital display? Now, the digital display is, I think, the perfect size for an anti-digi watch. There have been some watches that I've reviewed in the past, like the AQS 810, horrible digital display. It is so small, and then they dedicated some kind of counter, 5-second counter on the side that took up even more space. So to me, the digital display on this watch is very well laid out. So there's a great balance between the analog display and the digital display. So the balance that they provided, even in the design of the buttons, is very well done. How about the accuracy of this watch? Typical quartz accuracy. Now, the battery that's in this watch is probably the only major ding. And I say major, relatively speaking. It's not a huge thing anyway. But it's a 2-year battery, according to the specs on the webpage. I wish it was a 10-year battery. I mean, really, like, do some other engineering in here and make this into a 10-year battery. Now, I think part of it has to do with the power that's consumed by the compass. Also, obviously, you have the light on there as well. So all those functions together are just going to diminish the battery juice over time a little bit faster. So I get it, but I just wish it was closer to that 10-year mark, maybe a 5-year battery or something like that, because there are 2 batteries inside the case. How about legibility and lume? Legibility is incredible. I love it. I can see this from a distance. I know what the time is. I can read the display reasonably well without my glasses. Overall legibility, high marks. How about the light in the lume? The light does a good job. It lights up the digital display. Doesn't light up the analog display at all. Not a big deal, because as long as I can see one of them, both of them are telling me the same thing when it comes to time, but I prefer to have it on the digital display because that's where the stopwatch is. That's where the alarms are. All the other functions are there. I'd rather have that lit up. This watch, I think, does a great job of hitting the mark when it comes down to lighting up the correct thing. How about the lume on this watch? Yeah, there is lume on this watch. It's on the hands and it's on the indices. How good is the lume? Well, it's definitely below average. It's not anything to write home about. It's not something that's going to last all night for sure. It may last a half an hour to maybe an hour, somewhere in that range. But it's not anything that I would rely on. The light on the digital display is where you're going to get all the information you need in low light conditions. So what else about this watch? 100 meters of water resistance, which is fantastic. It has the G-Shock style strap to it. It has the ratcheting keeper, which means that as the ratcheting keeper is moved around, it kind of moves from one space to the next. It's not real easy to slide around. So that's the big thing, I think. I call it the ratcheting keeper system. I don't think that's an official term, but you get the idea of what that does. It just keeps the keeper from sliding around too easily on your wrist and on the strap. So those are a couple other features about this watch that I like. It doesn't have a super form-fitting G-Shock feel to it. A lot of the G-Shocks, you get to about here as far as the overall arc of the strap. You just can't bend it any further back. This one you can lay almost flat, which is nice. I love that. So it has a G-Shock-esque, or kind of-ish, look to it. But I like that. I prefer that, actually. So what are the functions that we have on this watch? Let's go through them together. We have the sunrise. We have the age of the moon. So for those of you that like to keep track of that thing, I actually really enjoy that as a fisherman. It's helpful to know when the new moon is and when the full moon is. You typically have better fishing, better hunting at those times of the month as well. So sunrise is always good. When is the sun going to come up? You have the alarm function, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 alarm functions, and just what else do you need with the alarm functions? That's plenty of alarm functions. You have a stopwatch function, there's a timer, and then there's also a world time, which is based off of the home time. So when you go out and choose a city, they just do the calculations for you and you get that. So it's not a dual time. I actually prefer dual time, where I set the time of the second city that I'm in, or the second location that I want, because not all world time zones are on the hour. Just in case you didn't know that. Kind of nerding out on that a little bit, but that is a flexibility that addresses that with the dual time setting. So it has all the major functions on here. You know, if this thing had tough solar, I would go with this watch in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Love this watch. What's the overall score of this watch? 9.8. I would give it a 9.9, but the hand's not moving out of the way. You know, when you're looking at the digital display, that is a significant deal. That is a huge plus on the Pathfinder side. Which of these two would I choose? Well, For $75, this watch is an outstanding buy. I would go with this watch any day and every day if I was looking for something under 150 bucks. If you're going to go over 150, closer to $200, you might as well go with the Pathfinder triple sensor. You're going to get a few more functions. You're going to get tough solar. You're going to get atomic timekeeping. So you get a lot of great functions that way. Also, the altimeter and barometer, which are tied together, it's an interesting function. It's interesting to know when weather is changing on you. You can see the barometer falling or rising based on the trend that it shows on the digital display. So that's an interesting function. I like it. I kind of geek out with the weather and the forecasting, that kind of stuff anyway. But if you're looking for something under 150 bucks, this is absolutely the watch to get. If you go outdoors at all, you need to know what the compass, the cardinal direction is wherever you're going so that you can get your way out, find your way out. So for me, 9.8 out of 10, huge yes, I would go get this watch. I'm actually probably going to wear this watch maybe as much as the triple sensor Pathfinder, maybe a little bit more. We're going to find out this summer how much I wear this watch because the proportions and the dimensions of this watch are incredible. Put your comments down below. Check out my website, realidealgear.com. There's also reviewed watches and other gear that's for sale there. I have started to cluster some of those watches with other things like flashlights into package deals because I think that's one way to help sweeten the deal on watches like the $30 Casios. Put a flashlight in there that's been reviewed as well, and it just makes the package that much more interesting, I think, for people to go out and purchase. So check it out, realidealgear.com. Thank you for your time. We'll catch you guys next time.